Hello, Michael Minio here. It's September 8, 2025. And what you see in front of you is a log entry, okay? This is kept by Medical Case Management that I was involved with, okay? Still am, as a matter of fact. There's still a log like this continuing. Yeah. I mean, if you're part of HRSA program, which would be Medical Case Management, funded by an HRSA grant, okay, administrated through the state you're in, okay, here you go, Medical Case Management. And medical really means behavioral, okay? Remember, we live in a 1984 world. So medical actually means behavioral or psychiatric, okay? Could mean medical. So I'm going to read for you this article, this entry here, okay, was put here because as evidence that I was delusional, had delusional thinking, was grandiose, and you know, whatever else they were trying to represent Mike Minio to be, okay, because they had never had anything good to say. As a matter of fact, they always made sure that they kept it up. And here we go. Here's an entry, okay, rather benign. But it's demonstrating their treatment plan, okay? So you could read that pretty much for yourself, okay? Right. So I was claiming I was a top student, that I had some understanding of international, you know, finance and stuff like that. And, well, it was put in there, obviously, because Mike was just delusional and grandiose and, you know, just a big braggart and, you know, had no basis for what he had indicated. And now I'm going to get for you the actual letter of recommendation. Now, this letter of recommendation is really quite a feather in my cap because this professor, Donald T. Buck, was a doctor from the Wharton School of Economics and was a Yale adjunct professor. Matter of fact, I went to Yale Finance Library to do my research for the paper I did that he remarks in his letter of recommendation. Now, he was a tough teacher, and matter of fact, he began his classes with, "Don't bother me for letter recommendations. I don't give them. Don't ask." Okay? He was quite clear about that. But in my case, I was walking across campus. Class had been let out. It was the end of the school year, 1984. And Donald Buck saw me walking across campus. And he yelled out across his window, second-story window. I believe he was the head of the business department. And he yelled out. He goes, "Mr. Minio." He always called me Mr. And Mr. Minio, I finally saw him, and he was like, "I gave you an A+," he yelled out on my term paper, right? And then he asked, "Would you like a letter of recommendation, Mr. Minio?" To which I, of course, said, "Of course, yes, sure." And he's like, "Come to my office in the morning." So here it is, okay? Now, this is obviously documentation that directly refutes what was placed in the log there. By a Miss Chavez, who was an MSW in training to be a licensed clinical social worker. Here it is, May 30th, 1984. Michael Minio was a student of mine in the following courses: Money and Banking, Macroeconomics 390, International Finance 309. He received grades of A in all of these courses. Michael is a particular hard-working student who always completed his class assignments. He possesses a perfect combination of analytical skills and the ability of expressing himself in high order in both oral and written expression to be a top achiever. In particular, Michael in the spring semester 1984, in my International Finance course, wrote a required term report which truly was outstanding. In the class of 1984, he certainly was one to the top 2 or 3 students that I had. I have the highest expectations that he will have no difficulty whatsoever in pursuing his career goals, and any firm that attracts him will benefit greatly from his association. I recommend Michael Mineo for your serious consideration and consider him to be an outstanding student. Okay? Now, it's one thing to be a really outstanding student, but it's another one to actually apply it in the real world, okay? I was really good with the Wall Street Journal. It was a good paper, okay? It hadn't turned into trash yet. The bond markets were still functioning according to classic economic theory and standard, just the basics like it's supposed to, okay, according to basic economics, all right, economic rules, and hadn't been taken over yet, which it did occur in the 90s. It began being seriously managed in the 90s. So in the real world, Mike was able to take a Wall Street Journal, and if you were sitting next to me, you would see me do two lines of symbols, and then based on what I actually did, I would know inconclusively what rates we're going to do at the market open. Back in those days, okay, we had overnight protection, meaning that you could actually lock a file for the day before's rates before the market opened, okay? So if you locked, let's say before 9 a.m., you were good. But once 9 a.m. happened, you had to wait for the rates to come out. So it was always a question, do we lock, do we not lock? And then there were times that big moves were happening, and if you didn't lock, you could lose a substantial amount of your loans, especially on refinances, right? So every single time I came into the office and I would say, when rates were concerned, and I would go, rates are going up. And everybody in the office would just drop their coffee mugs and go into a panic, and they would start faxing rate locks and going online and locks and making calls. Depends on the lender, okay? Some lenders you can call, some you could fax a lock, some you could do it online. Right. So it was different. But that's what would happen. They didn't question. They just dropped that cup and people went boom because they had a half hour. They never questioned because Mike was always right. All right? There are people alive that will tell you that. My biggest mistake is I really would have done well as a bond trader in Wall Street, but I don't like cities. And there was no internet back then. Technology was totally different. I mean, all I had was a rotary phone in my house, as a matter of fact. I had no internet, no TV, no radio. I had a calculator. Someone had stolen that when they had broken and stolen, my calculator, my alarm clock, bullshit little things like that. Yeah. Yeah, I did have a break-in once where I lived. That's all I got to say. I mean, I have clearly refuted this woman's entry, okay? And I mean, on this form, it has major, economics, degree, business economics, 1984, May 18th, 1984. How's that? I'll tell you. So that's enough for this video. She really stepped into it with this one, didn't she?